Finding the equation of the line continued. I said this last class. I'll say it again. Whenever you're asked to find an equation of a line, you need two things. So we'll write it again. You need the slope and you need 1 point. Those are the two things you need to have and to write an equation of a line. And then in class yesterday, we saw two methods. We saw the method using y equals mx plus b, and we saw the method using y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, or the point slope formula. And both methods work very well. But in order to use either of those methods, you first need the slope and 1 point. So what happens from now until the end of the unit is we start look at different situations where they don't give us everything directly. And what we're going to look at today is what happens if they give us 2 points. Could we still write the equation of a line? Because to write an equation of a line, you need two things. You need the slope and 1 point. So they gave us an extra point, but they didn't give us the slope. So then your question you have to ask yourself is, can I find the slope? If you have 2 points, could you find the slope between those? Yes. And so in the steps here, they say, well, we could find our slope first by using our slope formula. And then once you have the slope, then you could use either method 1 or method 2, because you now have the slope and a point. Now the question sometimes students ask is, if I have 2 points, does it matter which point I choose? No. Remember that big idea we talked about the other day. If a point is on the line, it makes it true. If a point is not on the line, it won't make it equal. So if they tell you 2 points are on the line, you can use either one of those 2 points to get your equation, and both will work. So here's our first example with 2 points. Okay? And I don't know how you want to set things up. Sometimes I've seen people, right? These are the things you need, right? You need your slope and you need a point. Do we have either of those? Yes. Okay. We have 2 points, right? So which point should we use? I'm serious. It doesn't matter which one do you feel like you would like to use. Do you like 5s better than 3s? Do you like 5s better? Okay, so we're going to use the 5 one because someone likes 5s better. That's perfectly fine. But we need our slope. So since we don't have that, we're going to find m first. We have a formula. Go to our formula sheet. And it says our slope is y2 minus y1. That's our rise. Over x2 minus x1. That's our run. We can go above our points and label x1, y1, x2, y2. And plug it in. If we do that, we can find our slope. So our slope will be y2 negative 5 minus y1, which is 3, x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is negative 2. Don't make any mistakes with your adding and subtracting negative numbers. Can you see on the top that you will get m equal to negative 8? And negative 2 minus the negatives like adding, be 4. And this simplifies to m equals negative 2. I'm just going to put a check mark there to say we got it. Because later, if you actually write it into your notes, when you study later, you might see that right away and say, how do I know that? Right? So check mark says, I just figured that out. And now we've got the two things that we need. We can now find the equation of a line, and we can choose method 1 or method 2. Right? I don't know which is your favorite, so I'll do both. Method 1 uses y equals mx plus b. Method 2 uses y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Using method 1, right? At this point, perfect, thank you. At this point, I'm just going to do the work like you would do, and I'll add the explanation stuff after. So what did we do in method 1? We plugged in our slope. So we would get, I know my slope is -2, so I can plug in -2 for m. And then we take the point that we chose, and you chose the point 2, -5. Then we plugged in our point. So when x is 2, y was -5. Add 4 to both sides to get b by itself, and you get b equals -1. So you now can write the equation y equals -2x minus 1 and put a circle around it. That's the work that you would show, okay? The first time we did method 1, I added the information in, right? This is what you have to know. We plugged in the slope. Then we plugged in the point. We solved for b. And then we wrote the equation. Okay. So we included that in our notes the first time. So this time when I went through it, I didn't write that down. But again, if you want to put that in your notes again, so when you study this, the blue part is what you need to know. You need to know that you need to plug in your slope and plug in your other point to find b so that you can write your equation. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Right? We have our point. Our y value is -5. We know our slope is -2. The x value of our point was +2. We can plug in our point and our slope. After this, we can rearrange this and simplify. This is going to be y plus 5 equals -2x plus 4. Subtract 5 on both sides to get y by itself. And we get exactly the same answer. So what did we do here? Same thing. We plugged in the point and slope at the same time. Whereas in the other one, we plugged in our slope first, then plugged in our point. If you wanted to, in method 1, you could plug both in at the same time. Then you rearrange the equation. In this one, I rearranged both to y equals mx plus b, but I should reread the question just to make sure it didn't ask for general form. Oh. What does it ask for? General form. So that's why, again, it's really good at the end of a question to reread something. This one is really easy to write in general form. General form is where one side is equal to 0. I'm going to move the 2x and the 1 over to the other side, so I'll get 2x plus y plus 1 equals 0. Remember, in general form, there is no fractions, no decimals, and the coefficient in front of x is positive. So what's new in today's questions? Whoops. What's new in today's questions is we didn't have m. So we had to find m first. And after finding m, it became identical to the questions we did before. So if you have the big idea in your mind, whenever I need to find the equation of a line, I need my slope and a point. Before I can do that, then whatever they give you will give you enough information to find both of those things. In this situation, they gave us a point, they gave us 2 points, and we could find the slope. And then once you found the slope, which isn't new, you've done that before, that was on your quiz yesterday. Once you've found your slope, well, then it becomes the other thing that's not new, what we did the other day. Find your equation of line with either method 1 or method 2. And again, you can choose whichever one you'd like to do. So here's one for you to try. Write the equation of a line that passes through the points 1, 4, and -2, -8. This time in slope-intercept form. Okay. Learning too much. Okay. So, examine the following graphs and find the equation of the line. The first one says find it in general form. So what do we need? We need a slope and a point. Okay. What do we have? It's not really labeled well. We should have had a scale because this isn't very clear. Sorry about that. On this graph, we're going to call this point -4, 2. And we're going to call this point 0, 0, 6. So first of all, I want you to realize that we have the same situation as the last question. It just was disguised. We were given 2 points, but it was just disguised in the graph. So when we say, do we have a point? Yes. We have 0, 6. We could use the slope formula to find the slope. However, I sometimes find that when you have a graph, it's sometimes just as easy to figure out what's my rise, what's my run. How much do I go up? 4. How much do I go over? 4. Rise over run will be 4 over 4. Should it be a positive slope or a negative slope? Positive, because my line is going up from left to right. So 4 over 4, I can just figure that out to be 1. But I could use my slope formula as well, and it wouldn't be wrong. Okay? What I'm going to do in these questions is if I see things that make your life easier, I'll show them to you, right? Rather than complicate them. Okay? Now you've got a point and a slope. You could go to method 1 or method 2. How is it that I can just say, oh, slope-intercept form, I know it's going to be 1x plus 6. How did I know that so quick? You see the shortcut? You have the y-intercept. It was one of the points. It's not always the case they give you a nice y-intercept, but in this one they did. So if they give you the y-intercept, use the short way and just plug in your slope and y-intercept. And we are so close to being done, but it asked for general form. We just need to rearrange this. 0 equals, I'll keep the x on this side. I'm going to subtract y on both sides because the coefficient of x needs to be positive, and we're done. That's the fastest way to do this one. If you have your y-intercept, don't do along method 1 or along method 2 if you don't have to. But again, we start off with the big idea. In order to find an equation of a line, you need the slope and a point. If the point happens to be the y-intercept like we found here, then you have a chance for a shortcut. You can just write y equals mx plus b right away, and rearranging to general form doesn't take very long. Second one, slope-intercept form. Again, I'm sorry I gave you such a nice one. I'll try to be more difficult and unruly later on. Okay? Slope-intercept form. So what do we need? We need a slope. We need a point. Do we have a point? Yes. Do we happen to have the y-intercept? Because that's a really nice point. We do. Again, I apologize that this wasn't labeled on your graphs. Could we use our graph to find our slope? We've gone over 4, down 2. Rise over run will be 2 over 4. Should it be positive or negative? Negative in this case because it's going down. 2 over 4 reduces to negative 1 over 2. It would not be bad if you started and wrote negative 2 over 4 first. Remember, the rise goes in your numerator, your run goes in your denominator. Can we use the shortcut here? Yes. We can just go to our final answer. We know the slope is negative 1/2. We know the y-intercept is negative 3. We don't even need to rearrange this because it asked for it in slope-intercept form. Perfect. This one's asking for both forms. This is one of the special lines. Horizontal and vertical lines are special, and I would want you to just be able to write the equation right away. Okay, first of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to, the scale wasn't labeled, but I'll label it by putting 0, negative 6. Do you remember the equation when it was a horizontal line?
Y equals negative 6.
It'll be y equals negative 6. Wow. Y equals negative 6. In y equals mx plus b form, that's 0x minus 6. Technically, y equals negative 6 is in y equals mx plus b form. No, if you wrote it like that, that would be fine. So I'm going to just put this in a box, and beside it, that's fine. In a different color, the ax plus by plus c equals 0 form. Okay? We need one side equal to 0. Can you see that if I add 6 to both sides, I'll get 0 on one side? You do not need to write 0x plus, but if it makes you feel better, you can do that. No. No. You won't lose marks if you put it, because it means the same thing. It's inconsequential. Mathematically, mathematicians would say it's nicer without it, right? Because you could do things like this all over the place, right? Here's your question. What's 2 plus 3? Ooh, I know this one. It's 5 plus 0. Whoa. I also know that it's 5 plus 0 plus 0. Plus 0. Right? And then all of a sudden you can't finish your exam because you say, Mr. JR showed me a trick and I'm still finishing question 1. Plus 0, plus 0, plus 0, plus 0. Yeah. It's not necessary. And you can see why it's really not recommended. But in certain places like this, where the form has a place for x and has a place for a, and you're feeling like something's missing, you can put that in if you want. A line segment has the same x-intercept as the line 3x minus 4y equals 12, and the same y-intercept as 2x minus 5y equals negative 10. Find the equation of the line in general form. See, I said I wasn't going to stay nice for long. Okay, what do we need? We need the slope. Did they tell us the slope? No. And we need a point. Did they tell us a point? No. Well, not directly. Okay? But let's read it again. A line has the same x-intercept of 3x minus 4y equals 12. Could you find the x-intercept of 3x minus 4y equals 12? Yes, you could. How would you find it? You always plug in y equals 0. To find an x-intercept, plug in y equals 0. 3x minus 4 times 0 equals 12. Okay? Now, we have to rewind a little bit. Okay? Because sometimes, like if you're watching a show, you just like, oh, I missed that. I rewind a little bit and watch it again. Hit the back button, 10 seconds is perfect. You can watch it again. Now, when I said, how do you find the x-intercept? And I asked that of the class, I heard one person say, make y equals 0. And that is not satisfactory. So I have to rewind till we get to this point, and you guys got a job to do in a second here. Okay? So, find the x-intercept of 3x minus 4y equals 12. How do we find an x-intercept?
Make y equals 0.
Oh, excellent. Yes, we make y equals 0. So you plug in 0 for y. And we now know that we have 0, sorry, x goes first, 4, 0. And that point is the same, so technically you could then go, yes, I found a point. But I still need the slope. How do we find slope? Either they tell us the slope, or we need to find another point so that we could use the slope formula. Perfect. So now in a different color, could I find the y-intercept of 2x minus 5y equals negative 10. How do I find a y-intercept?
Make x equal 0.
Oh, good, good, good. Nice. Yeah. We make x equals 0. And if we do that, 2 times, oh, I want to use green. 2 times 0 minus 5y equals negative 10. That just gives us minus 5y equals negative 10. Divide both sides by negative 5, and we get 2. So our y-intercept is 0, 2. We now have 2 points. So I'm going to, because my notes are getting a little bit messy, maybe yours are too, I'm going to put an A beside find the x-intercept, because that's what we did first. A B beside the y-intercept, because that's what we figured out next. And now C, since we have 2 points, we can find the slope. We can call one of our points our first point, the other one our second point, and our slope formula says y2 minus y1, that's your rise, divided by your run. And we can plug things in. y2 is 2 minus y1 is 0 over x2 is 0 minus x1 is 4. We get 2 over negative 4, which is equal to negative 1/2. Now we have our point and our slope. Can we do a shortcut? Yes. Why can we do a shortcut? Because even though the point I wrote was my x-intercept, do we know our y-intercept? Yes. So we can use our shortcut. The last thing we're going to do is write our equation. Y equals mx. Our y-intercept was 2. And we feel all good, and we just want to go on to the next equation. But we should read just to make sure they didn't ask for general form. Oh, they asked for general form. So what does general form have?
No fractions.
No fractions. So first thing I'm going to do is multiply everything by 2 to get rid of the fractions. 2y equals negative x plus 4, because the 2 here's would simplify. And in general form, one side is equal to 0. I'll move everything to the right so that my x is positive. Yep, the left, but I was looking at it upside down, so it's okay. Move everything to the left. And we're done. Whew. So let's look back. Okay? Because we did a lot of work on this question. Some students, when they approach a math question, they approach it as, if I get one like this, I have to memorize, I have to do this, then this, then this, then this. Okay? I would like you to approach the math question instead saying, if I want to find an equation of a line, what do I need? I need a point and a slope. And then just read the question and see what could I figure out, and does it help me get those two things? So the first sentence said it had the same x-intercept. So when I found the x-intercept, I found a point. Like, great, found a point. Then the second line said has the same y-intercept. So when I found the y-intercept, I'm like, great, now I have 2 points, and if I have 2 points, I can find my slope. So if you remember the main thing that you need, it tells you what you need to do next instead of memorizing steps for what should I do next, what should I do next, what should I do next. And it makes more sense, hopefully. And if math makes sense to you, it's easier. Okay? If we just try to memorize what we need to do all the way through, you forget one of the steps of what you memorized, and your whole question's gone. And you have to leave it blank. And you're like, I didn't even know what to do, where to start, because I forgot step 1. So if we can instead try to remember what we want to do and what we need to do, and it makes sense to us, we're going to find doing the mathematics a lot easier. Okay, so practice sheet number 8. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left.